what's my takeaway from the first session, which was on digital privacy or privacy in the digital age? From this discussion, I would say, one, there's confusion about the approach to this issue at the European level. The bottom-up approach is being tried right now. We don't know if the top-down is going to work. In my experience, 30 years here in Brussels, I would say some kind of top-down approach is necessary. But that means gaining the political backing of the member states to accept some kind of EU norms or regulations that address this issue. So I would say that's probably the main issue there. Switching over to the societal and / ethical aspects of data collection and the border issue, which, as we know, right, is being driven by political panic over the migration issue. I think it's not exactly a takeaway, but it's a projection that this is an issue that could be overtaken by emotions and migration, thus covering over a much broader range of issues that border protection and technology need to deal with, which is trade facilitation as well as organized crime. But the takeaway there is I still see some, if not tension, some divergence of views between the ethicists on one side and industry on the other. I think there still needs to be some convergence of views there about how data at the border is going to be collected in an ethical way and what the ethical framework should be for doing that. That has not been addressed, and despite some good EU-funded efforts to come up with a set of guidelines for that, they haven't yet been produced. And they certainly haven't been implemented at national level across the EU. So there's where I think the recommendations and the work still needs to be done.
What I think about this workshop, I would start with the fact that we decided with Peter Burgess to set up this workshop to better link the two worlds, one with the technology suppliers and the other with the expert in societal issues. Because these two worlds have a dialogue, remote dialogue, but not really sufficiently interacting to work together on solution of what could be secure technology, secure solution for the citizens, respecting privacy and societal issues in general. It's more a conflict than a solution what's coming out. So here, this is the first opportunity, to my knowledge, where we had an open discussion to find some concrete action. And this has been clearly demonstrated. This is possible. And when we have discussed the cybersecurity issues, and the what we call the privacy by design, because actually it turned out that the privacy is very vague concept, and what we have to focus is on data protection. So that protection or better protection of personal data, which could be by design as well, of course. But it's then we should be declined in the different aspects, in the real cooperation between the societal expert and the industry, the provider of security solution and the research centers, and then really reach out what is the objective of this project, which is providing security, safe and privacy-aware solutions to the citizens and the administration and the other users.
I took from the morning session on privacy was that the collection of data is one thing, but the sense-making mechanisms of those collected data, big data, or even bigger data, plays an even more important role. That is, to filter out relevant information so that this screening and filtering mechanisms deliver on their goal and do not backfire by picking up the wrong people or misfire by doing nothing. What I took from the second session was the necessity to anchor security research much more strongly in the societal and political context of European societies. That is, if research is done only in the lab and technologies are tested in vitro, they might be effective, but we do not know much about the societal impact, which means that we have to think the other way around and insert societal impact research in every security research project, particularly in the issues of migration and border control, which are so problematic right now.
The conference explored some very, very interesting questions about the key issues about privacy in the digital age. Historically, we've had all of these constitutional protections in terms of our civil liberties, but in a time of terror, all that's changed. And it's a question of, can our systems work without privacy? We need encryption for adequate banking. We need privacy for our conversations on social media. But many of the developments post 9/11 threaten that privacy and make a new case for warrantless wiretapping. Organizations like the NSA are intercepting communications on an industrial scale. And we have to question whether that's always in the public's good. We know that the NSA extracted 120 billion euros out of the European economy. That wasn't a security question for us. It was essentially espionage. So there's a need for a wider debate on whose security, who's deciding, how we can create this balance between getting better privacy from our electronic media when we're involved in our day-to-day business, to make sure that the backdoors that the government might want to put in terms of finding terrorists and so on, don't actually create weak spots that make our privacy compromised. The conference had an agenda to look at migration, surveillance and security, and it was very interesting in terms of how we can protect people coming to these shores, especially the unaccompanied minors that are traveling, that may disappear, may be trafficked. How can we ensure that we know who these people are and their movements if we don't somehow log, record, and manage the process of their transfer into European society or not? One of the key challenges is to strike that balance there. How do we know when a migration threshold is crossed? Are there new technologies to look at the ways of early warning in terms of the numbers of people coming through to make sure that the measuring, monitoring, tracking is adequate? There are all sorts of issues there. One of my points of departure was that's absolutely necessary, but is it sufficient? We've seen a relatively small number of migrants attempting to get into Europe, but in the public mind, it's a massive number. The question that I pose is this just the beginning? Is data management enough? Or are we seeing a new fortress Europe where we have the secure and the dispossessed? And what kinds of technologies should we have on the horizon to try and exclude if the numbers increase past thresholds that the public will accept? And so those are the dilemmas, and I think that we explored creative and humane ways of addressing that problem as if people mattered.